Hey guys, it's Aman
and Christina
from Our Rich Journey. Today we are talking about the index fund. And if you know our story, you know that we are index fund millionaires. We were government employees quietly sitting in our cubicles investing in index funds, and it allowed us to achieve financial independence and retire early. And so on today's video, we are going to dive deep into index funds and talk about them in a way that most people do not talk about them. Provide a brand new perspective when it comes to using them as an investment tool for financial independence.
So in this video, we are going to go over the history of the index fund, how it helped us become millionaires, and we're going to go over our top picks for index funds with Vanguard, Schwab, and Fidelity. So before we get started, we want to actually define what an index fund is.
You have to define that first.
So an index fund is a portfolio that tracks different stocks, bonds, and other securities. And an index fund is actually a type of mutual fund, but that's where it ends. A lot of people think mutual funds and index funds are interchangeable, that they're the exact same things, but they are not. An index fund is just one type of a mutual fund. So what's so unique about an index fund is that it is set up to match an index or track a particular market. Now, other mutual funds that are not index funds, they are different because instead of trying to match the market, they are trying to beat the market.
Now, this difference between an index fund and a mutual fund is very important because the sole purpose of a mutual fund is to beat the market. On the other hand, the sole purpose of an index fund is to match the market or match whatever sector it is set up to track. Now, this brings us to our history lesson for the day. You see, it is very important when you are investing to understand your history. And history, when it comes to investing, is a powerful tool. It will keep you on track when times get rough. So the history of the index fund actually starts in 1975. The index fund was invented by Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard.
So before 1975, the only way you could invest in a batch of stocks was through the mutual fund. Now, the problem with this was that mutual funds could rarely beat the market. So Jack Bogle came up with this earth-shattering, groundbreaking idea, which was rather than trying to beat the market, why not create something that would mimic the market?
Oh, and he had some haters because as soon as he said that, he had invented the index fund. And his idea, as simple as it was, created so much controversy because it meant that you did not need the mutual fund manager. And even till this day, you still have index fund haters because how can you justify charging people an exorbitant amount of money to manage a mutual fund when the index fund is beating it?
So by creating the index fund, a huge chain of events occurred. First, you no longer need an individual to manage the fund. Second, it cuts out all of these costs. Costs become a lot lower. And performance becomes better because you're tracking the market.
And this is the best part. It made it easier for individuals, regular investors, to invest in the stock market. You see, there are thousands of mutual funds and thousands of mutual fund managers. And so it is very hard to pick who is the best mutual fund manager, who's going to be the all-star that year when it comes to investing in the market. But if you are trying to mimic the market, to match the market, you just pick the index that does that.
So this brings us to our style of investing. We have always invested in index funds. We have never invested in mutual funds with a mutual fund manager that's trying to beat the market. We are just trying to mimic the market, and that's why we choose index funds.
And this is where we get deep into the philosophy of investing in index funds. You see, index fund investing is a long-term investment, whereas mutual fund investing, you are actually being more speculative because when you invest with a mutual fund, you are speculating that that mutual fund manager is going to have the right picks year in and year out. But when you are investing in index funds, what you are saying is that you believe in the history, the historical run of the stock market always going up.
So even though index fund investing is long-term and it's fairly automatic, you still have to do some research and determine what type of index fund you want to invest in. Now for us on our FIRE journey, we decided to focus on an index fund that tracked the complete total stock market and an index fund that tracked the S&P 500.
Now, when you hear that we were investing in the S&P 500 and the total stock market, some of you may be saying, Well, why? Because both of those indices are very similar. Well, at work through our 401ks, the S&P 500 was the best investment that we could make at work. But outside of our work account, outside of our 401k, investing in the total stock market was the best investment for us. Now, the difference between the S&P 500 index fund and a total stock market index fund is that the S&P focuses on the top 500 companies on the stock market, whereas a total stock market gets them all. It gets the small ones and it gets the big ones. We've invested in Vanguard's VFIAX, that's Vanguard 500 Index Fund for Admiral shares. And year to date, it's up over 23%. It has an expense ratio of 0.04%. Schwab also has an S&P 500 index fund that is up around the same amount and has an expense ratio of 0.02%. Fidelity as well, up 23.17% and an expense ratio of 0.01%.
But not all index funds are created equally. It has to deal with the brokerage firm that creates the index fund. So for example, we found the Rider S&P 500C, which is through Guggenheim Investments. It's up 20.59%, which is good, but when you compare it to other index funds, it's not that great. Also, the expense ratio is a whopping 2.41%. Now, this is an example of an index fund that tracks the S&P 500 but is making less money for its investors because of the huge expense ratio. And this is because the brokerage firm creates the index fund. So when you select that index fund, you are deciding to invest with that particular brokerage firm.
So this is a very important point because you are picking the company that you are going to be investing your money with. And there are a lot of different companies out there, but be careful who you sign up with because there are some brokerage companies that will charge you exorbitant fees for their services. And then there are some brokerages that will charge you reduced fees. And investing in index funds is always about getting the lowest fees because all index funds should be tracking the same indices. So if you go with a firm that's charging you 2% to track the S&P 500, you are being robbed because there is another firm called Vanguard, Schwab, or Fidelity that is charging you way less than that for the same index fund.
Now, we ultimately decided to select an index fund with Vanguard, and we chose Vanguard because of several reasons. One is because of the low-cost index funds. The second is because of the various accounts that we can open with them, including custodial accounts for our girls. We also opened up Roth IRA accounts with them, and we used Vanguard to roll over our old 401ks into a traditional IRA. So what we want to do now is talk about the specific index fund that we invested in Vanguard, but like we said, we realize that there's other brokerage firms that exist, and so we want to focus on Vanguard, on Schwab, and Fidelity. So we're going to talk about what we invested in Vanguard, and then we're also going to talk about the equivalent investments with Schwab and Fidelity.
Now, you have a lot of choices when it comes to investing in index funds. But for us, the total stock market has always been what we felt the most comfortable investing in because we believe in the overall stock market. We believe that overall it will go up. So at Vanguard, we invested in VTSAX, and we did a whole video on VTSAX and everything you need to know about it. But VTSAX has been the #1 investment for us on our financial independence journey. I mean, year to date, VTSAX is up over 22%. I mean, the return by just tracking the stock market has been amazing. And that is the power of index funds, is that when you invest in them over the long term, you see that type of growth.
So like we said, VTSAX has a year-to-date performance of 22.53%. But Schwab has a similar total stock market index fund called SWTSX. Its year-to-date performance is 22.58%, but its expense ratio is actually lower at 0.03%. And Fidelity's equivalent total stock market index fund is VZROX. Its year-to-date performance is 22.78%, but its expense ratio is 0%.
So we did that to illustrate the strong similarities between total stock market index funds. Now, what it comes down to is the preference that you have when it comes to picking the brokerage that you're going to be buying your total stock market index fund with, because that is the most important thing as well. You need to be able to feel comfortable investing with that company. So take a look at the expense ratios, take a look at their customer service, because they may be holding millions of your dollars, and you want that relationship to go smoothly.
Now, we didn't have millions of dollars when we first started investing in index funds, but what was important to us was finding the right index fund, knowing the brokerage firm that we wanted to invest in, and doing our proper research. So for you, if you're interested in investing in an index fund, make sure that you do the research so that you know how to properly invest. And if you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.